YouTube family? Welcome back or welcome to Recruiting Board. I'm Alex Agrella, like you already know, and let's jump into the video. RB Show week number 3, bro. I'm liking this. The videos are getting a little bit longer and longer. I'm adding a little bit more content every week. Everyone take this time, like, share, and subscribe to the best family here on YouTube. We got a little bit of Boston College talk today. Then I'm going to be answering some fan questions. I got my buddy Adam Kirkjian joining me today. We're going to be talking about St. John's Prep CM, what we saw, and really dissecting both of these teams. I asked you guys to ask me some questions on Instagram, so we're going to go over a couple of those. I got some juicy ones we picked out. Then we're going to go into who I think is the Gatorade player of the year. And lastly, of course, we'll do some reacting to some rankings. The like goal for this video, 200, boys. We're gonna get 1,000 in less than 24 hours, like always. So 200 likes is doable. Without further ado, let's jump into the video, y'all. We gotta talk BC football because earlier this year, I was giving the Eagles and Coach Hafley a lot of smack on Twitter because they had just lost to Northern Illinois, and especially during the Holy Cross game when they barely won that, I was very critical because I thought they got outshowed by an FCS team on their home turf, and I was very critical of Hafley. I did not think he was going to be able to make it through the season. However, today, at the day of this recording, we need to give Boston College and Hafley a lot of credit for these past couple weeks. They have won 3 straight games, and the Eagles needed to respond, and they did. While they only beat Army by a few points, wins are wins. They beat Virginia, and they beat Georgia Tech in back-to-back weeks. Coming back against Virginia, by the way, these are ACC teams that they need to beat because they're competing against them in recruiting. They played Georgia Tech better than Miami did, which I'll get into. With the way the rest of their schedule is, they can actually win out. And that would be a complete 180 from where they were earlier in the season. This is exciting. They got UConn coming up. They have to win that game because if you don't win that game, that literally negates every single thing I just said. It takes away all the momentum because UConn has none right now. They are pleading for a win. They need a win. And also, there gonna be some crossover in recruiting trails between UConn and BC. If Jim Moira can say, hey, I'm 2-0 against Hafley, not a good situation. Then they gotta go play Syracuse and Virginia Tech, who actually play each other this week. So their records right now at 3-4 and 4-3, those will be altered a little bit. But those are 2 winnable games for them as well. I'm not concerned with Miami. I don't care if they just beat Clemson. This is the same team that literally fumbled the game against Georgia Tech because they didn't know that if they took a knee, they would have won the game. So I am not concerned with that. I truly do believe that BC can run the table, go to a bowl game, which would be amazing for Hafley. He faced adversity that a lot of coaches can't get back from, and that was low-key a mob mentality that I was in, by the way. Now I'm trying to break away from it. I will give Hafley his credit here. On the recruiting trail, BC is not doing too well in terms of high school recruiting. They are currently in the 80s when you want to look at 24/7. Hafley did say, we are going to build this program through high school recruiting. In the year 2023, though, you have to throw that narrative out, honestly. We're seeing what Dion's doing. We are seeing what these schools are doing where they are turning on a dime. You could go hit the portal and get immediate needs, and we are seeing with Boston College what the portal has done for them. Their quarterback is right now playing out of his mind, and he did not start at BC. He started at UCF. That might be why Hafley's not signing as many high school kids. That's not really BC culture, but listen, the portal was nobody's culture 3 years ago. And you don't want to be like Dabo Swinney where he went from winning to not because he's not adjusting. I mean, Jeff Hafley's not Dabo Swinney. He can't be like that. He hasn't won a national championship. He's got to go get portal guys immediately. The right ones, of course, but you're starting to see more and more now. But I'm here to say right now, go Eagles, go. Next segment, I want to talk to y'all about the game I witnessed on Saturday. We got to see the SmackDown everyone looks forward to every single year. I don't care if you want to admit it or if you don't want to admit it. St. John's Prep versus Catholic Memorial. And I'll be honest, I most certainly did not think the game was going to go down like that. A lot of people are commenting on the video saying that there's some fugazi stuff that honestly I just don't believe. I'm going to bring in one of my good friends, Adam Kirkshin, and we're just going to dive into what we saw from CM vs. Prep, and we're going to answer some questions you may have. RB family, we got the legend himself, Adam Kirkshin, joining us tonight. Adam, thanks for joining us.
That's good. I think the last time, actually the first time I was on with you, conversation got lost in the ether. So let's hope that we get to keep this one.
Such a great talk, and then like somehow I got a new computer or something, bro. We talked about this, off camera, what it was to watch that game. I think that one thing surprised me, the line of scrimmage for Prep. What did you see?
Well, the funny thing about that is St. John's Prep didn't play all that different than they usually do. What will happen is Prep will the ball and run the ball in the first half, and then in the second half they'll stick to the run and just mow teams down that way. And that's kind of what they did against CM. They just ran the ball. There was nothing tricky about it. That's why it wasn't a fluke win. They just did what they do. They let up a couple big passing plays. Other than that, they controlled that game. And even when it was 0-0 in the first half, the Prep's first drive, they went right down the field. They just didn't score. So I thought, I was just impressed mostly because St. John's Prep played its game and won that way. And it makes me think that if there was a rematch in another, universe, that St. John's Prep would win that one too.
This is going to be tough for some CM fans to hear because they haven't heard it in a long time. But when we watched that game, would you agree that CM was not the better team that day? Like, they have some injuries. They have some injuries. If Makai Dodd's on that field, we don't know what would happen, right? But they were not the better team.
Well, when a team runs the ball well and stops the run, they're usually going to win. They enforced their type of game onto CM. Like, that was how the Prep likes to win games. Running the football, stopping the run. Their front seven was very good on defense. Their offensive line, very good on offense. Their offensive line, too. You're talking about 2 juniors, a sophomore, and 2 seniors. It's not a veteran unit. I mean, some of those guys played last year. Some of them didn't. The freshman was that right guard, Cade Blanchett, I thought played a very good game. The Prep forces you to play a physical game. They knew their advantage was inside the box, and they've made CM play inside the box with them. It was just their type of game, and they really enforced their will. CM threw the ball pretty well, actually. I think they had 202 passing yards. And were some throws missed? Sure. Were some of them missed because of the elements? I'm sure there were. I don't know how many. But when you're that good up front on both sides of the ball, you're going to win, rain or shine.
But this isn't really a question. More so if we could touch on CM's reign of dominance, though. They literally hadn't lost since pre-pandemic. Like, to a Massachusetts team. I'm not going to count the Florida loss. I don't count that. Adam, talk about that, because you've been covering this game a lot longer than I have.
Well, the funny thing about that is most times that you have a winning streak, it's maybe D2 or D3, D4, D5. It's like, it's harder to put up a big run like that in D1, especially when you're CM and you're playing in the Catholic Conference. Now, obviously, right now they play in D2, but they play mostly D1 teams. They play Zavarian. They play St. John's Prep. They play BC High. It's hard to do. They've had a ton of good players. They've had depth. They've had speed. They've had good line play. They've really been good everywhere you can be good with a lot of D1 players and guys that go to D1 and do well. I think it's impressive what CM did. I think they're going to be able to do something again sometime in the relatively near future as long as DiBiase is there. They have such great talent. And, the only problem is, like, you wish we could have seen what this year's team could have done with a fully healthy roster.
Right.
So, like with Dodd and some of those other guys, I mean, you knew they wouldn't be quite as good as they were last year. But we never, like, I was at their first game against Mansfield.
Oh, man.
You were there too, yeah.
Yeah, that team looked dominant.
They looked awesome. And in some ways, they looked even better than the previous year's team, which is crazy enough as well. I mean, now they have to concentrate on winning D2. That's the goal in front of them now. Mm-hmm. And are they going to be a favorite? Yes, but I don't think they're going to be as big of a favorite as they would have been before because, I think this is one of King Philip's best teams. And so I think it's going to be a lot of fun to watch.
Adam, you read my mind because I was literally about to say, let's segue away into KP. Again, that was one question. Does CM run away with it this year? No. KP can come in and get it. I'm telling you. Like, do you agree?
I think KP is very capable of making that a 4-quarter game. Now,
Right.
I think KP is strong up front. I think they have good backs. I think they have a good quarterback in Tommy McLeish, who doesn't get to throw that much because KP doesn't throw a ton. The only thing I will say is that KP doesn't have like a quick strike offense, and
No.
if they fall behind like they have in the past, it'll be tough to come back. I think KP can keep that game competitive for 4 quarters. I really do.
It is not going to be like the past 2 Super Bowls, in my opinion, if those 2 teams do meet, because there are some other teams that, are going to be in their way. Barnstable or, Marshfield, they're not just going to get rolled over.
The last 2 Super Bowls, KP's kept it relatively close the first 3 quarters. I think CM has less of a capability to be a quick strike offense than they did the last 2 years.
Yeah.
It's different. If Dodd's playing, he's a home run threat every time he touches the ball. I think they have good guys, but I don't think they're as fast as like Detrell Jones was, as Carson Harwood was, as Jaden Skeet was, guys like that. I think that is another reason why KP stays in that game maybe a little bit longer this year.
I think we kept you under the 10. Yeah. Oh, no, we kept you right at 10, brother. Like, we kept you literally right at 10. I appreciate this. Everyone, go follow Adam. Twitter will be below. He is literally an OG in this game and teaches me everything I need to know about mass football. So I asked you on Instagram to put out some questions for me, and I will answer it for you now. I can't get to all of them because there was over 100. Let me put out a couple, though, that I think are the most notable ones. Just a friendly one to get it started. How did you start Recruiting Board? First, it was a website, if you really want to go back. I started Recruiting Board in 2019. I honestly was just bored, and I had a couple of months before I was going to start my new job. They hired me in September, and I couldn't start till November. So I just went to a game. It was my high school game, Exeter versus, I think it was Bishop Girton in 2019. Yeah. And I posted a video on Twitter, and it did pretty well. I got like 1,600 views, and I was getting more and more followers when I was posting stuff on Twitter. So I would just go to games, but I wasn't posting anything on YouTube. And then I ended up going to Central Catholic versus Everett. That was like a really good game. Central Catholic probably shouldn't have won that game. It was very controversial that they did. I had every single play on my phone. These clips don't do it justice. I gotta put it all on YouTube. I threw them all together on iMovie and I just put them on YouTube. Just kind of went from there. They had to take a whole year off because of COVID, bro. That sucked. 2021 though was when I really got in it every Friday and Saturday to a game before I had hit my first 1,000 subscribers. So question number 2, who gives Billerica the best run for their money? That's a great question because everyone knows, if you've been watching these past 2 episodes, that I am on Billerica's team. I think that they'll win all of Division 3. With that said, there definitely are some teams that are in their way. The first I would say in their way would be Milford. Milford, who did lose to KP this week. Not by very much. KP did have a pick 6, but Milford was able to keep that game at halftime interesting. KP pulled away towards the end. They did what they do, but Milford is a talented team. Only lost of the season against KP. Definitely can't discredit them. Next team I would say is Walpole. That was one question in here as well. Do I think Walpole is legitimate? Absolutely, I think they're legitimate. I would say those 2 teams first in Division 3 would be Billerica's biggest problem. However, staying on that topic, next question. What public school has surprised you the most with their record? And that's Dartmouth. Dartmouth's another team who I think that they can maybe surprise some people in Division 3 because not a lot of people know about Dartmouth. And I'll be honest, when I went on their huddle, a lot of them don't have up-to-date highlights or anything like that. They got a couple of guys out there. Their quarterback was one of our dogs of the week, but I think Dartmouth would be that team that surprises me when I look at their record. They are more south than the South Shore. They're almost in Rhode Island. Not a lot of people remember Dartmouth, Massachusetts. They are undefeated. Oh, I love this question, and I definitely wanted to address it. Why is Gerby not the Gatorade Player of the Year. The Gatorade Player of the Year, there are so many different factors that go into that. Obviously, you gotta dominate, and it's more than just statistically. You gotta dominate against high-level competition. 2, you gotta be strong in your community. Where you play also factors into it. But from a prospect standpoint, Gerby is the top offensive lineman in the state. And I do think that raises a conversation, because what would he have to do to win Gatorade Player of the Year? Never let up a sack on a running-based team, or just absolutely dominate, get like 20 pancakes a game? That would be so hard. The only Gatorade Player of the Year that was an offensive lineman that I could name off rip is Mark Spinney, and that's because he's from New Hampshire. Bishop Girton played at Boston College, by the way, bro. I don't want to say next to impossible, because you'd have to be like a high-level Notre Dame guy that everyone already has their eyes on. It would just be so hard. I don't know Gerby too well, but from what I do, Gerby does not care about Gatorade Player of the Year. Gerby wants to win championships, and that's what he's all about. That, academics, and now Notre Dame football. Needham vs. LS Part 2. Who would win? Boy, I've seen now Needham play and LS play. Granted, it was a long time ago when I saw LS play, guys, so you gotta keep into that account. And Needham did win. Bro, that's tough, man. That's tough, because I used to be able to just say that so confidently it was with LS because I hadn't watched Needham play, but now I know how they go. You better be ready to fight in the trenches if you're gonna go up against Needham, and I think LS is down to do that. Shoot. Man. I'd have to give it to LS. I just think that LS can do too many more things offensively than Needham could do offensively. I can say this, if those two teams meet in the playoffs, I would probably go to that game. I'm saying it, it's recorded. Chick-fil-A or Popeyes? Popeyes, definitely. Chick-fil-A is overrated, y'all. I ain't a fan. Popeyes all day. ISL versus MIAA, main differences. Obviously in the ISL, you can repeat openly in high school. So a lot of those kids are older. You would have like a 19-year-old senior or an 18-year-old junior. Not only that, I feel like especially offensively in the ISL, you are not going to see, I mean, you got the BB and N's of the world. They're going to pound the hell out of you. But outside of them, it's way more spread. The ball is a little bit faster, more dual threat quarterbacks. The play is definitely more even because the schools can recruit. If a team has a good recruiting class or if philosophy changes within the school and they can or they can't allow more players in, that can change some things. Where in the MIAA, if people move into your school district or if people transfer to your school, it's a little bit different. MIAA rosters are much deeper typically. When you get down to the, Division 8, 6, 7 teams, that honestly is where you start to look at more of an ISL roster size. But don't get me wrong, it's much more quality over quantity when you're at an ISL school. Like those kids, while you may not have very many, you'll have some studs on the team that you found and you brought in. Not only that, I would say at an ISL school, academics are just so much different. Like, it's just a higher prestige of academics compared to most schools, in the MIAA. Teams in Massachusetts that could beat St. John's Prep. Any league. That's tough. So, could. Hypothetically, could. I'm not saying would. I'm saying could. I think the list is very small, so I will start with, I think CM could, even though they didn't. Zavarian, I think they could. Springfield Central, I think they could. BB&N, no, I don't think they could. I think Williston could, though. I think they could spread it out on them better than CM could spread it out on them. I think that may be it. Oh, you know what? There's another team that I think could. I think King Philip could. King Philip, I gotta give them respect because I didn't in the preseason. And that's a tremendous team. And they're built very similar to St. John's Prep. You'd see a smackdown if those two teams played each other because they are so similar to how their styles of play are. But I think KP could. Just to talk about the list, KP, CM, Zavarian, Springfield Central, and Williston, I think, are the 5 teams that could beat Prep. Not saying they would, they could. Ooh, I like this one. This one's juicy, boys. Bishop Fenwick situation with the MIAA. Woo-wee! Well, I have been waiting to talk about this one for a while. Y'all really want to know? In my opinion, none of this is professional. I am not a lawyer. I am just a dude with a really awesome YouTube channel. So all of what I'm about to say is for entertainment purposes. I think that it's really unfortunate that these kids over at Fenwick have to suffer for the stupid decisions that the adults made. Because that's honestly what it was. Basically, in a nutshell, Bishop Fenwick is suing the MIAA. I think that Fenwick is suing the MIAA just because they're backed into a corner and that's all there is left to do. And I think honestly it's stupid. You know, some of you kids out there are too young to understand this, but as an adult, you know, when you go to court, it is never a good thing when you're in court, ever. But two, lawyers drag out the facts. They want to know everything. I don't think them suing the MIAA is gonna do anything. Don't think it's gonna get overturned. And again, I just think it's really sad that, you know, some of these kids are gonna suffer because of the mistakes that these adults made. The football team and all these other sports had nothing to do with it. It was the baseball team. Public information. Maybe that's a video one day I do, y'all, where I really dive deep into the MIAA versus Bishop Fenwick. But for right there, I'm leaving it at that. Now, what some of you have come to see, something that I talked about on my Instagram story the other day, my favorite to win Gatorade Player of the Year. With this being the last week of the regular season, postseason awards will start to come out, and I'm going to be the first to talk about the Gatorade Player of the Year and who I think has already gotten it locked up early. There have been a lot of great players this season, but there is one who has stood out that has been on an absolute tear his junior year. 2 letters. B-O. Bo. Bobby McCormick III. If you are paying attention to the ISL, Bo McCormick is tearing it up right now. He's at around 900 yards and 13 touchdowns in 5 games. He's averaging from anywhere from 180 yards a game up to 190. I saw him play live against Williston, and other than when I watched Cam Akers, who plays for the Vikings, in the state championship game his senior year, rush for 7 touchdowns, I haven't seen a running back dominate like that in person like I did when Bo played Williston. He had 4 touchdowns and over 250 yards. And I know what you're saying. Oh, well, BB&N runs the ball. They run the ball all the time. My counter to that, right? So if you know they're going to run the ball, why aren't you stopping them? Not only that, if you go watch my video, he was ripping off huge runs. And that's what he does. When you're playing in the ISL and you're dominating like he is, you're going to win Gatorade Player of the Year. Not only that, but in my mind, you can't just take any running back and put him back there. BB&N's not the same if you don't have BMC back there. And every year he's gotten better. He's got great balance. He always is finding ways to fall forward. He's a weight room guy, strong as an ox. Go look on his Twitter, you can see what he's doing. Here's something I want to mention. The ISL schools start way after the MIAA schools, like 2-3 weeks later. So he had some catching up to do in terms of stats, and he caught up to most of y'all out there. Additionally, they only play at the most 9 games, and that's if they make a bowl game. You play way more than that if you make the playoffs, especially if you get to the state championship game. He's playing more impressive talent week in, week out than most teams in the MIAA. In terms of impact per game on a team, there's nobody doing it like Bobby McCormick III. Put some respect on his name. But as long as Bo stays healthy, I think he's gonna run away with it. And that's a pun intended, by the way. You heard it here first on Recruiting Board. Whether it's right or it's wrong, I'm talking about things that the mainstream guys, the Globe, all of them aren't talking about right now. You can find that here. So if you really love me, which I know you do, like, share, and of course, subscribe to the best family here on YouTube. Next segment. Let's roll. Woo! Now let's talk rankings. And I actually want to take this time right now to say, guys, this isn't here to lambast the MIAA because it's just to talk, bring up debate, engaging conversation, and I don't have any problem with them. Division 1, when you look at the top 5, there has definitely been a shakeup, bro. The top is where I'm instantly drawn to because we have to now solidify that St. John's Prep is undoubtedly the best team in Massachusetts. No matter what conference, no matter what league, no matter what division, St. John's Prep now wears that crown. In my mind, yeah, Springfield Central, I know last week, guys, I did have them over Prep, but with Prep's win over CM, I have to put them at the top. Number 2, though, I don't agree with Xaverian. As I said last week, I have to put Springfield Central at my number 2. Number 3 is Xaverian. So I want to take this time now to say, one of my questions that I did get from an Instagram follower was, do I think Xaverian could win it all in Division 1? Yes. Xaverian could definitely win it all in Division 1. I said that last week. You asked me, Xaverian should have beaten CM already as well. Then there'd be a huge debate as to be who should be at the top of Division 1. So I see Needham moved up. And obviously everyone knows I was at their game against Weymouth this week where they really dominated the Wildcats. I had never seen the Rockets play before and I loved getting to know the team. Obviously they are a huge recruiting board supporter, so it was very interesting to see them play. However, I am very confused as how they moved up to number 3 in the MIA rankings. Needham's a team that they were high, then they went low, and now they're back at number 3, just in time for the playoffs. With that said, if you play Needham, better be ready because they're a well-coached team. I was very impressed with their discipline, especially on defense. They got punched early and they just kept going. In my top, though, I would put LS at number 4 and Needham at number 5. I am adding Andover back into my top 10 after not putting them in last week, and they've only continued to win. I plan on being at the game this Friday, Warriors versus Indians. I haven't seen either of them play. Billerica undefeated, Andover 1 loss to Methuen. Billerica beat Methuen. So I'm very interested to see how that showdown goes. Dropping out of my top 10 was Natick and Weymouth, both of them with tough losses, obviously. Weymouth, thank you for hosting me. You guys were great. Go Wildcats. Natick losing to Wellesley at this point in the season is actually really bad for them. Central Catholic, I love you guys, but I just don't quite get how y'all have 2 wins and are still in the top 10. It is what it is. They have to win this game against Chelmsford or they aren't in. The Raiders have had a very tough schedule. Did lose to Andover last week. I just think it's so tough having Central Catholic if they do make the playoffs. Higher seeded than, I've said it every week than in Everett. The Crimson Tide knows I love them, but we're on from that. Now we go on to D2. So here's what the MIAA power rankings were, and here's how mine compared to them. So some notable things about Division 2 is that Wellesley picked up their 4th straight win against Natick this week, which is very interesting. Wellesley, I'm telling you, they started off 0-3, but catching some fire right now. If they make a playoff run and they start knocking out all these teams, don't be surprised about it. So I have Wellesley shooting up my board. It looks like Peabody's moving up as well. They're undefeated heading into the last game of the year against Salem, which I think that's going to be a great game out in Salem. Bishop Feion, of course, they still only have 1 loss on the year. They snuck out a win against Bishop Fenwick this week, which I don't really know if that did or didn't do anything. Fenwick's completely ineligible for anything this year. KP obviously is at 1 in the MIA rankings, and CM is at 2. Do I agree with that? Obviously, I have CM higher than KP, but like we talked earlier with Adam, I do not think that the gap is as big this year. I think KP could beat Catholic Memorial if those two were to meet in the Super Bowl. I don't want to discredit all the other great teams in Division 2. Division 3. So here's what happened with the MIAA, and here's my rankings compared to it. Billerica still undefeated, Dartmouth still undefeated, and West Springfield is still undefeated. It's also very interesting to see where they're placed. Billerica at 1, Dartmouth at 5, West Springfield at 8. Milton, I don't know what to think of Milton right now, y'all. Milton's kind of on a bit of a slide, bro. I think Dembo is going to get them right, but this is definitely not the same Milton team as last year, and it's not the same position they found themselves in last year. I can't have them at number 2. You know, they had a bad loss to Walpole, and then they lose to Taunton, and that one I'm like really scratching my head over.
Back-to-back weeks, bro. This is not the time to hit a losing streak.
Division 3 is so interesting this year, bro. I've said it every week of the show, but I'm definitely going to have to find a D3 playoff game to go to because I think it's going to be so competitive. With 16 teams making it, you got Doherty sitting there, Westboro sitting there. So it's going to be interesting to see where the seeding comes out on Monday. I'm very excited to watch Bill Ricca play on Friday against Andover. I think that's going to be the best game in the state.
D4. Here's the MIAA ones. And now here are mine. I like the motion Tewksbury's got down. You know, you give him 2 losses, 1 to Methuen, 1 to Bill Ricca. 2 good teams. You know what? Do think Duxbury wins, so that's why I have Duxbury over Tewksbury. Holliston, they're starting to turn that corner. You know, I thought that they were kind of overranked, but now, since then, they've won 2 straight games, so that's great for them. Situate, wow, bro, look at all these 4-3s, 5-2s. Bro, Amherst Pelham, 6-1. They're behind Marblehead, bro. Marblehead, I love you guys. We gotta, no, that's messed up to those kids. That's messed up. 6 wins. Or Shepherd Hill at 21. And Marblehead at 2-4 is at 18 and could make it. Wakefield Memorial, who were in the Super Bowl last year, is on the outside. Wow. High drama in D4 right now. Bruh, there's a lot going on right here. D4 is so lit, dude. Division 5. Let's see it. Bruh, Foxborough with a loss to KP, man. That top 5 is so loaded. I've seen Dedham play. They are good. Dedham has lost 2 games, both by the slimmest of margins of 1 point. My boy G out there doing work with his guys. Danvers, of course, Vucine doing his thing. Bruh, Shawsheen Valley Tech. Yo, that was actually one of my questions. Which tech schools is the best? There it is right there. Shawsheen Valley Tech is the most lit tech school I've heard of. Of course, Hanover up there at 7-0. My favorite to win it all. But again, I'm loving how there's a good amount of 5-win teams up here. I haven't seen Danvers play in person yet. I can't for whatever reason. Cause they're literally they're the only school that was do we have something with the Danvers community television? So you can't come to our games, bro. Alright, fine. Let's see. Here's how I would do my own D5. D6. Woo! Bro, loaded. Holy God, that's loaded. 6-1 Norwell, Abington, Salem, 5-2 Hudson, Fairhaven, 7-0. Linfield 6-1, bro. Winthrop upsetting Salem, by the way. I ain't even gonna lie, bro. If Salem and Peabody was both undefeated entering this game, I was probably gonna go to that game. Once Winthrop beat them, that kind of changed some things. I ain't even gonna lie. Sorry, y'all. Here's how I would rank my D6. I gotta see if somehow I can make my way out to one of these playoff games, bro. I definitely want to see a D6 playoff game. Do I even have any fans at Division 6 schools? Let me know in the comments below.
Alright guys, that's it for the video. Thank you so much for joining. It was a blast. I'll see y'all next week. I'm Alex Agrella with Recruiting Board, and I am signing off.